Good evening. My name is Chad and I work with County Executive Steve Bellone. I would like to welcome you to the County Executive's Telephone Town Hall meeting. For those of you who are wondering if you are connected, you are. Right now you are in what's called listen-only mode, which means that you can hear me, but I cannot hear you. In just a moment, I will introduce County Executive Stephen Bellone, who will talk about the water crisis that is facing Suffolk County, and then we will open up for questions. But first, let me go over a few housekeeping items. If you'd like to ask a question, it is very easy. At any time, you can press *3 on your touch-tone phone, and you'll be put in line to speak with one of our staff members. They'll pop on and take down your name and where you're calling from, and then we'll try to get to your question just as quickly as possible. Next time you hear your name by either myself or the county executive, you'll be live to the entire conference, and you'll be able to ask your question directly. If we're unable to get to your question this evening, you'll have the opportunity to leave a voicemail at the end of the call, and we'll get back to you as quickly as possible. We'll be visiting for about an hour tonight, but if you need to get off the call early, you can press *9 to go directly to voicemail to leave your question. I know it all sounds like a lot, but trust me, it's very simple, and if you have any questions, you can ask our staff members while they're taking down your name. We'll be visiting a while tonight, so there'll be an ample amount of time to ask your questions. Once again, to ask a question about the water quality crisis, press *3. Once again, if you'd like to ask a question, we'd like to hear from you. *3 in your touch-tone phone. Now, I'd like to turn the conversation over to County Executive Steve Bellone.
Thank you very much, Chad, and good evening to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this water quality teleconference town hall. We're coming to you from the H. Lee Dennison building in Hauppauge County headquarters. I want to thank first the Roush Foundation for hosting this call in an effort to educate the public about the water quality crisis that is facing Suffolk County. I have with me Dave Capel. Dave is a consultant to the Roush Foundation, and I know him well from his days as the mayor from the village of Greenport, where he did some really incredibly innovative work. We are also joined by Dave Colon. Dave is the chairman of the Suffolk County Planning Commission, whose responsibilities include zoning, land use, development of a comprehensive plan for Suffolk County, the adoption of rules to oversee the county planning department, and to report annually to the legislature on the status of the county. In his capacity as chairman of that commission, Dave has done some really terrific work highlighting the water quality crisis. I also want to thank the members of my team that are here who have really done some terrific work bringing about the information, working on the basic data and the science of this issue. We have with us the Commissioner of the Department of Public Works, Gil Anderson, the Acting Director of the Suffolk County Office of Environmental Quality and Project Director for the Comprehensive Water Plan that we just released last week, the Executive Summary, Walt DeWittiak, the Director of Planning for Suffolk County Department of Economic Development, Sarah Lansdale, and the Director of Sustainability and the Chief Recovery Officer for the county, Dorian Dale. Also from the Department of Health, the Principal Public Health Engineer, Walter Hilbert. I want to thank again all of them for the great work they've been doing on this issue. I also want to note some individuals who joined us at last week's press conference, which one individual who was there labeled a turning point on this issue. We've had some eminent scientists locally who have really rung the alarm bells on this important issue. They include Dr. Chris Gobler, a professor at Stony Brook University, and Dr. Larry Swanson. These two individuals, probably more than anyone from the scientific community, have done terrific work here in Suffolk County and in this region highlighting the issue. We've also had some great environmental advocates who have been pushing and talking about this issue for years, and I want to recognize them: Adrian Esposito, the Citizens Campaign for the Environment, Kevin McDonald from the Nature Conservancy, Dick Amper from the Pine Barrens Society, Bob DeLuca from the Group for the East End. Because this is an issue that touches all of us on Long Island, we not only have environmental advocates concerned about this issue, but folks from the business community as well. Kevin Law, who's the president and executive director of the Long Island Association, has actually not only been an environmentalist himself, but as the head of the LIA, made this a top priority for the Long Island Association, the largest business group in our region. We also had last week with us Mitch Pally from the Long Island Builders Institute and an MTA board member And from the agricultural community, the president of the Long Island Farm Bureau, the executive director, Joe Grigella. And finally, I want to thank our friends at the Suffolk County Water Authority, whose job it is to deliver clean, pure water, and they do such a great job at it. Suffolk County Water Authority Executive Director Jeff Szabo, and the Chairman, Jim Gorin. For those of you who may have joined us while I was doing some of those introductions, this is County Executive Steve Bellone, and we are doing a tele-town hall conference on the water quality crisis in our region. So water is at the heart of everything on Long Island. It's critical to our health and our quality of life. It underpins our multi-billion-dollar tourism industry, $4.7 billion tourism industry, which is critical to our economy. The water underneath us is the water that we drink every day. And we now also understand, in the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy, that water can also be a threat to us as well. Last week, we released a report that shows that we have been polluting this precious resource in a way that has devastated our surface waters, our bays and our river corridors. It has caused negative trends in the quality of our drinking water and left us more vulnerable to future storms like Sandy. For the health of our region today and for the sake of future generations, we must reverse these trends. To do this, we have to first understand what the source of the problem is. And our scientists and our employees here from the Department of Health and Department of Public Works and our environmental advocates have done a great job of identifying that. The primary cause of this significant decline in our water quality is nitrogen. Nitrogen is public water enemy number one. The primary source, but not the only source, of nitrogen pollution is failing septics and cesspools. Now, I'll quote my good friend that I introduced here before, Walter Widiak from the Department of Health. He told the Environmental Committee here in Suffolk County that we have 1.5 million people in Suffolk County, approximately 70% of which, or roughly 1 million people, who are not sewered. This is probably the only place in the world with this large of a density, in this tight a space, where the waste is going into a sole source aquifer immediately beneath us that we're drinking. And in his usual understated way, Walter then said, this is a big concern. This nitrogen pollution is causing impaired water bodies, closed beaches in our bays, harmful algal blooms, decimated shellfish populations. We've lost more than 6,000 jobs from the loss of the shellfish industry on the South Shore here. And now we know that negative trends in the quality of our drinking water supply are occurring as well. This updated report that we released last week highlights another critically important issue. The nitrogen pollution has been systematically undermining our coastal wetlands. Now, after the barrier beaches, our critical second line of defense against storms like Sandy is our wetlands, seagrass, marshlands, and they have been devastated by the nitrogen pollution in our water. Now, I want to take a moment to recognize and thank Governor Andrew Cuomo, who has not only been tremendous in working with us in our recovery from Superstorm Sandy, but who pointed this out, this issue that I'm talking about, in his New York State 2100 Commission report, where the state found that tidal wetlands can protect coastal communities from storm damage by reducing wave energy and amplitude, slowing water velocity, and stabilizing the shoreline through sediment deposition. Again, for those of you who are just joining us, or may have just joined us, this is County Executive Steve Bellone. We're doing a town hall conference on the water quality crisis in Suffolk County, and remind people who want to ask a question to hit *3, and you'll be able to talk to someone who will be able to take down your question. Now, if we're going to protect ourselves from future storms, we have to rebuild our coastal wetland defenses. The only way that we can do that is by confronting this water quality problem. So how do we confront the problem? This is an issue that we've been grappling with here in Suffolk County for some period of time now. With 70% of Suffolk County unsewered, the cost of solving this problem has seemed an insurmountable obstacle. But just because a problem is daunting, that is not an excuse for inaction. So we've been meeting with our talented teams from the Department of Health and the Department of Public Works to figure out how to make this problem more manageable. We started with the approximately 350,000 homes in the county that are unsewered, and we put in criteria to get that number down significantly. We said we need to focus on those parcels that are medium or high density and that are within the 0 to 25-year contributing area for our surface waters and the 0 to 50-year contributing area to public wells. That took us from a 350,000 problem down to a 200,000 home problem. And then from there we said, how do we prioritize within those 200,000 homes that really need some sort of upgraded wastewater treatment? In other words, how do we make this problem manageable so that it doesn't seem so insurmountable and that we can actually begin the process of solving it? Where do we get the highest return for our investment? And that return is in nitrogen reduction, reducing that pollution. So the criteria we added was a depth to groundwater of less than 10 feet. So those places with high water tables that may be having to pump out cesspools relatively frequently. Those are areas of priority. And places that are adjacent to river corridors that are listed as impaired water bodies, like Calls River, Connecticut River, the Forge River, just to cite a few examples. When you add those criteria, you cut that 200,000 number in more than half. And at that point, you're now getting to a problem that, while it's still daunting, no question about it, it is seeming possible to solve. Again, for those of you just joining us, we are doing a town hall conference on the water quality issue. I'm going to be turning it over to two of my colleagues in just a moment. This is County Executive Steve Bellone. For those of you who are interested in asking a question, just hit *3. The bottom line is, for me, this is the most important priority of our administration. We are now beginning, and this is a central part of it, a sustained campaign to inform Suffolk County residents about the scope of this problem and to work with the scientific, environmental, and business community, as well as my colleagues on all levels of government, to identify and fund solutions. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dave Capel for the Roush Foundation. Dave, thank you for joining us, and thank you for your support on this call.
County Executive Bellone, we're really, speaking for the Foundation, we're delighted at your strong leadership position that you've taken on this crucial issue for the island. This has been an important priority for the Roush Foundation, and to that extent, we've committed $1.5 million over 3 years to support the Long Island Clean Water Partnership, which consists of the Nature Conservancy, the Group for the East End, the Long Island Pine Barren Society, and the Citizens Campaign for the Environment. We truly believe that it's impossible to consider a healthy and prosperous future for Long Island without a reliable, safe, and sustainable drinking water supply. People don't realize that it not only affects what comes out of the tap when you turn it on in the house, but the groundwater migrates eventually into the bays and into Long Island Sound and carries with it whatever pollution is contained therein, so that the lobster die-off, the loss of bay scallops on the East End, the negative impact on the clamming industry in Great South Bay, these can all be traced to the problem of nitrates in the aquifer. So, it's hard to think about Long Island in the future being something like what that we take for granted as the Long Island historically, without addressing this problem. And we're gratified to be able to be here in support of the county executive in taking this powerful leadership position that you have. Thank you very much.
Dave, thank you very much, and thanks again to the Roush Foundation for the work that you're doing on this issue and so many others to help build a sustainable economy and environment on Long Island. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the chairman of the Suffolk County Planning Commission, Dave Colon.
Thank you, County Executive Balone. I want to thank you for your leadership on this critically important issue, and also thank the thousands of you from across our county who are listening in to this live town hall for taking the time to be with us. I'm here today wearing two hats: as a business person who's creating and building companies here on Long Island, and as the chair of the Planning Commission for Suffolk County. The County Planning Commission is the regional land use authority for Suffolk County, and it works with Suffolk's towns and villages on policies relating to regional goals. On behalf of the County Planning Commission, we look forward to working with the county executive and the legislature to figure out the best path to protect this place where we all live. The purpose of planning is doing, and as the Water Resources Management Plan makes clear, nowhere is action needed more than in ensuring that the water assets that surround us and are under our feet are protected for our generation and the next and the next. The county executive is right on when he says that this issue requires the citizens of our county and all levels of government to work collaboratively. When it comes to the water we all share, nothing we can do apart will have as much impact as what we can do together. As a business person, I also want to point out that Suffolk's economic health and Suffolk's environmental health are tightly linked. First, as the county executive indicated, our natural resources economy is a critical part of Suffolk's existing economic vitality. The tourism industry, the recreation industry, the fishing industry, farming, wineries, aquaculture, all are based on a sound natural environment. Second, our locally sourced plentiful water supply gives us a competitive advantage over other parts of the country and the world. We live in a high-cost area, but our costs for clean and abundant drinking water are quite low. That provides Long Island and Suffolk County with a unique economic asset into the future, if we can keep it. Finally, a strong water quality system based on enhancing our man-made infrastructure and protecting our natural infrastructure will move us away from the false choice of either environmental protection or economic growth. It will allow us to both protect and grow by giving our region a platform to sustainably develop our economy, create jobs, and ensure adequate and diverse housing options. Our economy is only as strong as our economic infrastructure. Just as we frequently repair our roads and bridges, now we must make sure that our groundwater, bays, and estuaries are strengthened too. We look forward to working with County Executive Balone and all of you to meet this challenge.
Thank you very much, Dave, and you spelled it out very well. And now we will turn it back over to Chad, our moderator.
Thanks, Steve. Once again, welcome to tonight's telephone town hall. There's been over 9,500 people from across the county who are participating so far this evening, and we have a number of questions, but I'd like to assure the listening audience, if you'd like to ask a question, press *3 on your touch-tone phone, and you can ask a question. Once again, *3 on your touch-tone phone if you'd like to ask a question to County Executive Steve Balone. If you're in a bit of a time crunch and you want to ask a question but you need to run, press *9, and that will allow you to leave a voicemail right away. But we're going to go ahead and get the audience involved, and we're going to take a question from John in East Islip. John, are you there?
Yes.
Go ahead with your question.
Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Oh, okay, great. As a homeowner, I just wanted to know what would the best, as an individual, what's the best thing a homeowner could do on a daily basis to help reduce the nitrates?
Well, John, thank you very much for getting on the call. And the first thing is, you participating in this call and taking the time is very important because, as I said, we're at the start of a public information campaign on an issue that's really an existential issue for us on Long Island because water is everything to us here, right? It is, we don't get our water pumped from upstate. Our water comes from underneath us. The water's all around us. It's through us in our rivers and our lakes. And obviously, as I said earlier, we know very well now that it can harm us and threaten us with storms like Sandy that we need to protect ourselves for. So this is an important first step. Joining us, I would encourage you, John, we're going to have on the county Facebook page updates on this, information that would allow you to become involved in this effort and in this campaign to help solve this crisis. That's facebook.com / Suffolk County Executive Steve Bellone. We talked about the nitrogen. I'll just add this, John. There are other things that go into the water, and I think Dave said this Dave Capel, that we have to be conscious of anything that's going into our water, down our drains, can be ending up into our water supplies when we have those septics and cesspools. Pharmaceuticals, personal care products, things of that nature are also contributing to water quality problems. So it's important for people to know that, when, that's flushed, that's harming our water quality as well. So we can avoid that by making sure we dispose of them properly. But bottom line, we're going to have much more information on what individuals can do to help in this campaign to solve this water quality crisis on that Facebook page. Dave?
County Executive Bellone, I'd just like to add one thing, that in the end, I think that we believe the solutions that will come out for solving this problem will involve the need for state legislation. So it's important that we generate a core group of support in the public. So going to that Facebook page and liking it so that we can stay in touch with you going forward to get your support when we need it to influence state legislatures would be a big contribution.
Thank you, Dave. Chad, are you with us?
Hey, thanks again. Once again, if you'd like to ask a question, press *3 in your touch-tone phone, *3. We're going to go ahead and take our next question from, I apologize for the mispronunciation, Ann Liguari. Ann, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I have a four-part question. First of all, I'd like to say that John's question was not even answered. It was a whole bunch of political double talk. Second of all, the first part of my question is this pertaining to only the well water or to the town water that is provided from Suffolk County Water Authority? Hello?
Thank you very much. We have Walter Widiak with us from the Department of Health, and he's going to give you some more specifics on that issue.
This is Walter. We have a lot of information available on the web. We have a Peconic Estuary Program website and various materials on the Health Department website. We hope to consolidate these and make these more user-friendly. The number one thing that residents can do is limit their fertilizer usage. No fertilizer is encouraged. If you choose to fertilize, use a slow-release organic fertilizer to the minimum possible recommendation necessary. Use integrated pest management. Minimize your pesticide usage. Seek access to places like Cornell Cooperative Extension if you have problems with regard to the health of your lawn or any vegetation, to minimize chemical usage on your property, because all that stuff is going to seep into the landscape. The other piece of the puzzle is your sanitary system. Not only for extending its life and for its safety, but also for improved nitrogen removal over time. This is something you want to look at and maintain. If it's a brand new sanitary system, you should get 10 to 20 years. If you're not on a sewer without having to inspect and pump it, older systems need to be done more frequently, maybe every 5 years. But talk to your cesspool contractor, have them inspect it, see if it's functioning properly and if it needs to be pumped out.
And Walter, what about public wells? That was part of the question.
I didn't hear the entirety of the question. It had to do with whether public wells were safe for nitrogen. Public water supply wells essentially are sited in safe places and deep, and by and large, 99% of those meet standards very well, and there's a very small percentage that need treatment. If you're on a private well, You should get it tested regularly because they're inherently shallow and more susceptible to contamination. The health department recommends that you do this every 1 to 2 years, either via a private contractor or through the health department, to ensure that your private water supply is safe, and if you need treatment of any sort, the health department can help you in that regard as well.
Walter, could you also suggest some of the retrofits that can be applied to existing cesspools and septics to really make them more effective?
In terms of retrofit, if you have an improperly functioning sanitary system, upgrading it to a septic tank and leaching pool is the first thing, and the health department requires that for new construction or upgrades. In terms of enhanced nitrogen removal, the health department is evaluating options. This year, we hope to have 50% nitrogen removal systems approved and on the market that can be used quickly, conveniently, and hopefully in a cost-effective manner. So we're working on that initiative as well.
Thank you very much, Walter. And that was Dorian Dale, our Chief Recovery Officer. We're going to be providing information on upgrading septics on that Facebook page as well that Walter was talking about. So thank you very much for that question.
Thank you. Once again, if you'd like to ask a question, *3 in your touch-tone phone. And the Facebook page that County Executive Stephen Bellone mentioned, it's on Facebook. It's Suffolk County Executive Stephen Bellone. If you'd like to sign up for more information, you can like the page. Once again, *3 if you'd like to ask a question, and we're going to go ahead and move on to Linda in St. James. Linda, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead.
My question is, well, first of all, in, I think, 1976, I was aware of the dangerous chemicals that were getting into our groundwater and possibly combining with other chemicals in the water. And now that nitrogen is a problem, such a problem, I want to know, will the plan that we eventually come up with in Suffolk County, I hope that it will include education, because many people on Long Island don't even know that our water comes from underneath them, and that whatever they put on the ground, their children may be drinking. And will the plan just be about sewage systems and treatment plants? And because that will take years, I think, to get everybody on a sewage system. And then the last question, part of it, is will there be better choices for the pesticides, herbicides, fertilizers that we are putting on our ground that eventually get into our groundwater?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. Well, first, this is, in terms of the public education, this is the start of it, and you can expect that there'll be much more of this happening, direct outreach to residents across Suffolk County, talking to media outlets to get information out about the water quality crisis. There's no question that, you know, the public, by and large, many people aren't even aware of what's underground. You know, people buy homes, you know, and they're very familiar with many things in those homes, the boiler, the roof. They know the age, condition when they buy the home, but oftentimes when people purchase homes, they're not even aware of the septic system, how old it, or the cesspool even, how old it is, whether it's really functioning correctly or not. And these systems, like all mechanical systems, have a lifespan that only lasts a certain period of time, 15, 20, 25 years. So many of these systems have been in the ground and operating well past their useful lifespan. As far as the alternatives, you're absolutely right to say sewering is not the only way to solve this problem. There are many things that we need to look at. Sewering will be a solution for some areas. I think that will be a large part of the solution, but we also need to look at what they call distributed systems, which are smaller systems that could possibly hook in 200 homes at a time. And then, you know, we really need to be looking at on-site septic systems that are upgraded, that are incorporating the latest technologies. And there may be technologies that have not been fully matured yet or not invented yet that ultimately we would apply here in terms of on-site septic systems for homeowners. So there won't be one solution to this issue. The important thing is that we recognize the extent of the problem, that we identify funding sources to work to help put the systems in place that are necessary to address the problem, and that the public is aware of this issue. Dave Colon.
Just to add on to that, I think it's important for everyone to realize that this problem was a long time in being created, and it'll be a long time in being solved. But what's important about what the county executive is doing today is making sure that the county government is focused on starting to solve that problem, to get the word out about how we all need to work together, and we're going to need policies to make sure that we turn the ship in the right direction. The water that everyone drinks in Suffolk County here today from the Water Authority is safe and will be. But we see some long-term trends that are troubling, and those trends are also playing themselves out in our bays and estuaries, and some of the issues of the red tides and brown tides that we've seen. So in some ways, that's the canary in a coal mine, that we have a problem, and the recent studies indicate that we need to turn things around, and that's why what we're starting today is so critically important.
And you also mentioned, finally, that was Dave Colon, this is County Executive Steve Bellone. You also mentioned other types of pollutants. Without question, we are examining, working with the the business community, to develop more innovative ways to do things that are not harmful to our water supply. So yes, that is something that you can expect that we'll be working on, looking at the latest techniques, for instance, in the agricultural community, and as well as products that can be improved over time that would have less of an impact on our water quality. Thank you for that question.
Thanks, Steve. Once again, you're welcome to anyone who joined us late. We are doing a telephone town hall with County Executive Steve Bellone to talk about Suffolk County's water quality crisis. If you'd like to ask a question, please press *3 in your touch-tone phone. Once again, *3 if you'd like to ask a question. We're going to go ahead and move on to our next question from Denslow in Dix Hills. Denslow, are you there? Denslow?
Yes?
Are you there?
Yes.
Hey, good evening. You're live with the County Executive Steve Bellone. Your question.
Well, I actually left a question. My name is Allison. Denslow is my husband. And we live in Dix Hills, 615 Half Hollow Road. Our area has acre zoning. And everything I've read talked about getting sewers into very dense areas. But we have a pretty high water table. I wondered what the chances were of actually getting sewers in this area. I know they're adding sewers in Wyandanch with the Wyandanch rising, and I was hoping it could come a little further.
Yeah, well, thank you for that question, Allison. The issue is that really it depends what the need is, and at the end of the day, whether the homeowners in that area will ultimately vote for a district, and that will depend on the resources that we can put together, which is Dave Capel talked about moving to work with our state partners as well as federal partners to identify funding resources. What is clear is that as we move to address this problem and put in infrastructure, that this burden cannot be borne entirely or even predominantly by homeowners, that we need to identify funding sources that will assist homeowners. Now, being in a sewer district does cost money, just like pumping out your cesspool costs money. But being in a sewer district does cost money, but we need to make sure that those costs are in line with what others who have sewer districts throughout the county are paying, so that this does not become a burden for homeowners. So ultimately what would happen, the areas that are the most critical in terms of reducing the nitrogen pollution to our bays, to our river corridors, those are the areas that would first be targeted for sewer installation. And you would reach out to homeowners. We would have information sessions, and then ultimately homeowners would vote to create a district or to expand a district in that area, knowing all of the facts. But we're going to target those areas. We need to target those areas because the cost of sewering is extraordinarily expensive. So we need to make sure we're prioritizing the areas that need the sewers to reduce the nitrogen to the maximum effect, and that we get the biggest bang for our buck. The last thing we want to do is place unnecessary burdens on homeowners. As far as the Wyandanch district, that was a sewer line that was attached attached to the Southwest Sewer District. So an expansion occurred in the Central Business District corridor to hook up businesses, but the sewer infrastructure that was put in was large enough that if additional sewering is needed in the surrounding areas, and we can identify the funding sources for it, that will be able to use that infrastructure to not only hook in businesses, but to hook in additional homes as well. So, Allison, thank you very much for that question, and please keep track of this movement on Facebook and in the other ways that we'll be reaching out through the media.
Thanks, Steve. And once again, if you'd like to ask a question, *3 on your touch-tone phone. I'd like to mention that we have over 9,700 people who joined us for tonight's telephone town hall talking about Suffolk County's water quality crisis. And at this point, I'd like to actually engage the listening audience and ask them a question and use your telephone keypad to respond. I'll read the question a couple times. The question is, how important is water quality to your family's life? Once again, the question is, how important is water quality to your family's life? Press 1 for not important at all. Press 2 for not very important. Press 3 if you haven't really thought about it. Press 4 for somewhat important. And press 5 is very important. Once again, the question is, how important is water quality to your family's life? Press 1 for not important at all. Press 2 for not very important. Press 3 if you don't have an opinion on it. Press 4 for somewhat important, or press 5 for very important. Once again, the question is, how important is water quality to your family's life? While the results are tabulating, I'd like to go ahead and remind folks, if you'd like to ask a question, *3 on your touch-tone phone, and we're going to go ahead and take our next question from Sarah in Deer Park. Sarah, are you there?
I sure am, and thank you so much for having this tonight. I'm only a 30-year resident in this area, but early on I detected really, really poor quality water. I'm the second to the last on the line in my area, and early in the 1990s I installed a water filtering system for my entire house and an osmosis a membrane system under my sink for my drinking, cooking water, etc. There's been a big improvement. I don't understand, however, at least two things. Why construction in Dune Road and other very fragile areas continues to go on for the wealthiest of the people on Long Island. Why we haven't restricted or educated people about the use of pesticides and herbicides, especially in view of what it's doing to crops. The use of farmland, which is virtually no more on Long Island. We paved over the blackest earth with highways and office buildings. So it's kind of like we have shot ourselves in the foot. And why there are no water treatments in Suffolk County is really a question that needs to be asked. I know that when I bought my house in 1984, I was told that money had been paid in taxes for sewers in years prior. Well, it's 30 years down the line, and we still have cesspools and septic tanks. And as precaution, because I had been in a place where this was a problem before up in New England, I installed immediately an overflow extra cesspool in my yard. I do not deposit certain things in my toilet. I don't use chemicals. But it's a matter of education and why it's taken this long in this delicate aquifer.
Sarah,
it's about time. I'm really glad.
Thanks for the question. Steve, do you want to address Sarah's question?
Sure, there was a lot of things in there, Sarah. Thank you very much. I really appreciate all of your comments, and clearly you are somebody who has been very vigilant, putting in a water filtering system, overflow septics, and we appreciate that. And I think, you're absolutely right. There's been a little bit of a sense of lateness in coming to this, but I can tell you there have been people out there who have been advocating on this issue for a long time. Part of the problem is, originally in the Southwest Sewer District, which was really the first major sewering at all in Suffolk County, there were, a significant number of problems with that operation, that sewering, and it really put the county off of sewering for probably the next 3 decades. So, we're now catching up because some of the new scientific data is confirming some of the things that we have just seen for ourselves, and that common sense is telling us that we are polluting our waterways. Where when we see harmful algal blooms and red tide and shellfish and other fish dying off in our bays, we intuitively understand we're doing something to our water quality that is harming this place that we live. And the data is now in. The county has just updated its comprehensive water resources report, and that report is what we're referring to when we say that we see alarming trends. Clearly, our surface waters have been devastated, but our groundwater has negative trends associated with since the last report, which was in 1987. With respect to farmland, Sarah, I understand, being a Babylon resident myself, we're in the western end of Suffolk County, which is obviously the denser part of the county. But as you go out east, we have over 30,000 acres of farmland in this county. We're actually the #1 county in the state of New York for agricultural production in terms of dollar output. So, we are a farming county. Which is, one of the wonderful things about our county. But we need to make sure also that, and this is why we're working so closely with our agricultural community, that we're utilizing best practices to make sure that that we're not doing any harm. I also want to ask Walt DeWittiak to come back on and cover some of the things that you raised in your question.
I just wanted to speak to the pesticide issue very briefly. Historically, there were very significant pesticide problems, particularly on the east end of Suffolk County. Approximately half of the private wells out there have pesticide detection. So again, the take-home message is if you have a private well, definitely get it tested routinely. The really bad actors like aldicarb and dactyl and a number of others have been banned, and the burden of those pesticides in the aquifer has gone down significantly as they're washing away and degrading and moving out of our aquifers. There's about 100 other pesticides and degradants that have been detected at low levels. We're working with the state DEC that regulates these things to make sure that these things are tested in advance of use when they hit the environment, and they're managed and controlled as needed. There is agriculture. It's not a zero-impact activity, but we want to get it as close to zero as we can using agricultural environmental management, best management practices, and some of the initiatives the county executive has outlined.
This is Dave Capel. Now, thank you, Walter.
I also think it's important to point out that there have been significant efforts to protect the groundwater over the years, most notably the establishment of the Central Pine Barrens Protection Act. And through the involvement of the Pine Barren Society, 100,000 acres of land that sits atop the aquifer has been preserved, and that goes a long way towards addressing the problem. So, as was said earlier, this is a long-term problem. It's going to take a long time to solve, but I don't think it's accurate to say that no steps have been taken.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point, Dave. We've had some. The Suffolk County was the first county in America to start buying up and preserving open space, and as a county, as a region, well, really as a county, we've spent more than $1 billion over that period of time. This started in the early 70s. Some pioneering work from some past environmental advocates and public policy officials to to protect open space. People like Dick Amper in the environmental community on the Pine Barrens Act and so many others I've mentioned. But what we now know is, based on the scientific data, the work that's been done up to this point is not enough by a long shot to counteract the effects of the pollution that is continuing to move into our lakes, our rivers, and our bays. And we need to do more now. And that's what this is about. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Once again, if you'd like to ask a question, *3 on your touch-tone phone, *3. I'd like to go back and tell you the results of the poll. It wasn't very close. The question was, how important is water quality to your family's life? And with a 93% majority, the listening audience said very important. Steve, do you want to address the overwhelming importance that residents of Suffolk County are putting on their water, and what you're trying to do to help?
Well, I tell you, that's a wonderful thing to hear. Because that's what we need. That kind of support is what we need to address a crisis of this magnitude. And we haven't talked a lot. I mentioned it in my comments, but we also know that one of the impacts of this nitrogen pollution has been undermining our coastal wetlands, which have been decimated over the last 3 decades. And those wetlands, and it's pointed out in the governor's report, are absolutely critical, just as our barrier beaches. We talk about our barrier beaches as our first line of defense against storms and storm surges and flooding. Those tidal wetlands, seagrass and marshlands, they are our next best natural defense against storms like Sandy. And the only way that we can restore those wetlands and rebuild those marshes and get them back to the vibrant state they used to be, so they can act as that defense, is to get at the heart of the pollution that is undermining them. And that's just another really significant issue in this water quality problem. So to see, the sentiment expressed in that poll says to me that we're going to have the support that we need to push this issue forward. And we're just at the start of this campaign, and it makes me feel very heartened that we're going to see this through.
Thank you, Steve. Let's go ahead and take our next question from William in Lindenhurst. William, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead.
Hello? Hello, can you hear me? Okay, I actually have been involved in water remediation on Long Island for the last 35 years. I worked in the largest pump and treat facility in New York State that was located in Old Bethpage on the eastern boundaries of Nassau County and the western boundaries of Suffolk County. And between the state and the counties, they paid over $68 million to build that facility. We were pulling 1.5 million gallons a day out of the ground and treating it. And since the esteemed panel knows as well as I do, this is not a cost-effective business. It's very expensive to treat polluted groundwater. And the facility right now is down. It's out of service. No one wants to run it. No one wants to take responsibility to run it. And that was $68 million that was just wasted. Now, in view of that, New York State has a de facto policy that they will not stop the migration of polluted groundwater. So what they want to do is treat the water wells at the head and chlorinate everything. So now, through the state and the counties, they're funding Suffolk County Water, which is now treating Massapequa Park, Farmingdale, all the other waterheads, because they couldn't stop the migration of the polluted water. So what you guys are talking about is pollution that's down about 10 feet. And what I'm talking about is the stuff that's down about 350 to 400 feet that we are actually drinking. And I would want to know if there's any action with the state trying to produce any other pump and retreat facilities that can stop the migration.
Thank you, William. Steve, or do any of your experts have an idea on this question?
Well, first, William, thank you for the question, and I think the first thing to say is that you recognize a very important point, and that is that the most expensive thing for us to do is have to treat contaminated groundwater. And it's a point that the Water Authority has made and experts have made that, our failure to act, as expensive as these things are, sewering, the cost to all the things we mentioned, our quality of life, our health, but literally just the cost of doing remediation in the future because we failed to act now to address this water quality problem will make anything that we do now pale in comparison to what we're required to do, in the not too distant future. So I think you hit the nail on the head there that it's very important that we address this because doing that kind of remediation is extraordinarily expensive. We want to prevent that from happening to our residents and our businesses and our taxpayers in the future. Dave Capel from the Roush Foundation. Dave?
Steve, I think the caller raises a very important point also in pointing out that the problem is shared across the island, that this is not just a problem in somebody else's neighborhood, that the aquifer travels under the entire island so that a pollution source that may be in Nassau County could actually show up in Suffolk County at some point in time. So that, I think it's really important that you raise awareness that this is a regional problem. This is a shared problem across the entire island.
Thank you, Dave. And I want to ask Walter Hilbert from our Department of Health to address the question a bit. Walter?
Yeah, for the most part, we are going to be looking at, from a standpoint of plume migration, we're going to be looking at defining where that plume is going, making sure that people have safe and wholesome drinking water, through connection to public water supply, and then working with the Water Authority and siting wells, new wells, moving wells, etc. As right now, because as you said, just the sheer cost of treatment is so enormous that at this point in time, you have to almost look for different water supplies, which again is a substantial cost. So.
Yeah, and I want to point out, thank you, Walter, that we have been working very closely with New York State. As I said earlier, Governor Cuomo has been a leader on this issue and engaged on this issue. We're working closely with the state DEC, who have been, again, I think, done really important work and outstanding work on this issue. So we're working closely with our state partners. We're also working with our federal partners. This is a problem that's not going to have one solution, and it's going to take all of us coming together as a region, as a state, and addressing this on a federal level as well.
Thank you, Steve. We'd like to go ahead and move on to our next question. The next question is from Sean in Comac. Sean, are you there? Sean Wilbert? Hey,
yes.
Go ahead with your question.
Mr. Ballone, I respectfully disagree with the fact that we've done enough so far. I don't think we would see such dramatic negative results with the levels. I think we're in a reactive situation rather than a proactive situation. But the bigger question is, what are we going to do increasing, say, a 30% coverage to 50% coverage of the county in terms of new sewage treatment plants? Will they be fortified against situations like occurred in Bay Park in Nassau County? Understandably, a 100-year storm. But also, you're only talking about covering 50% of Suffolk County with this increase of 100,000 homes, and it still leaves a lot of people unsewered, which is still a huge problem.
Sean, thank you very much for that question. And I just want to be clear that I certainly have not said that we have done enough. I believe, and it's why we're gathered here today, it's why we made the announcement last week, that clearly we have not done enough, that we need to do more. But that is clear now. I think it would be wrong to suggest that nothing has been done. A significant amount has been done. In fact, Suffolk County's programs, and I'm just referring to the people who have done this work over 30 years, have been modeled and copied in many ways across the country. But clearly we need to do more, and that's what we're talking about here, Sean. as I said before, there's not one solution, but sewering is absolutely a critical part of the equation. We need to identify funding sources to make that happen, and we need to prioritize the areas. The reason I talked about that 100,000 number is, the Department of Health here and Department of Public Works and our teams here working with experts have been identifying the areas of the county where we are seeing the most nitrogen pollution being caused going into our bays and our river corridors. Those are the areas that we need to focus. We can't look at this as a blanket. We just need to sewer everyone. That would be too costly. It would be unnecessary to do that. We need to prioritize, and we need to focus on the places that are contributing the most nitrogen pollution to our waterways. In terms of them being fortified, I think what you saw in Suffolk County, and a lot of credit goes to our great teams here, from Department of Health, Department of Public Works in particular. The sewage plant in Suffolk County was not compromised. Obviously, the plant came very close, but a lot of hard work, a lot of effort, prevented that from happening. And Sean, you mentioned the 100-year storms. Unfortunately, these 100-year storms are becoming 10-year storms and 2-year storms, it seems like. So clearly, we're going to be facing more storms like this in the future. We need to get at this pollution so we can restore our coastal wetland defenses, and we can reverse these water quality trends that have devastated our surface waters and are starting to undermine our quality of our drinking water. So again, I want to thank the entire team here, the Roush Foundation, Dave Capel, Dave Colon, the Suffolk County Planning Commission, and all of you across Suffolk County who have joined us to help launch this campaign to help preserve the Long Island that we know and love. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And if we were unable to get to your question this evening, just stay on the line and you'll be able to leave a voicemail, leave your name, your address, email address if you have it, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible, or go to Facebook and Suffolk County Executive Stephen Bellone and for more information. Thank you all. Have a good night.